Before we dive into today's content, I want to make it absolutely clear that this video and this channel do not endorse, promote, or encourage any form of illegal activity whatsoever. The purpose of this video is purely educational and informational. Any actions taken as a result of watching this video are your own responsibility. This is my 5th time attending Shambhala. Every time I come here, whether I realize it or not, Shambhala is my pilgrimage. Now, on my journey here, I listened to an audiobook by Joe Dispenza. His message is that individuals can consciously rewire their brains and change their lives through meditation, mindfulness, and intentional thought processes. I have been having trouble sleeping, accompanied with sleep apnea. I have taken melatonin every night for the last few years. Psychedelics often exacerbate the symptoms. Now, after my last video where I saw a car during my mushroom experience, and it felt so real, I was curious if there was something that could be done with my health. So once I got inside, I set up camp. About an hour later, I took some MDMA. Upon ingestion, I decided I didn't want to have any negative thoughts tonight, only wanted my behavior to operate in a way that supports my highest potential. And I have to say, it worked. The night was filled with freedom of exploration. There was no buffer to me having to be any specific way. I felt really good with a camera in my hand as well. I wandered around with no target or plan. I checked out all the vendors. Now, through this experience, I was given a crash course on how to film a festival. It seemed like everyone I talked to gave me a lesson of sorts that coincided with the previous interaction, although each interaction was unique in its own right, a chain of events that were all linked together. Now, I brought some gum, as I usually do coming to the festival, and I enjoy handing it out to people. It's amazing to me that there is such a spectrum of ways that people react to being offered free gum out of nowhere. Some are incredibly gracious, and others appear almost repulsed, and everything in between. As the night went on, it seemed to be getting better and better. You know, it's like I've been here before with a list of DJs that I want to see at certain times, but it seems like the less agenda that I have, the more free I am. And I wandered around without a care in the world for the night. You know, whatever the night has in store, I do not know, but I'm willing to explore. When my night came to a close, I went back to my tent to get some sleep. I was expecting to hopefully fall asleep within an hour or two, but to my surprise, I fell asleep instantly. I can't even remember the last time this happened, especially on MDMA. I have a rule. When I am trying a substance for the first time, I do not do it in public. From what I've read, 1P LSD is indistinguishable from regular LSD, so I decided to break my own rule on this one. 1P LSD is an RC that is legal here in Canada. It's kind of strange purchasing these things that come with a receipt, but hey, I'm all for it. I haven't made any content in about a year, and in that time, this channel has become demonetized. Now, I've been thinking about it a lot. You know, what am I to do? I enjoy it, but obviously, I need to change some things up. As the LSD started to come online, I was watching a fire show. There were different performers with different props, with a mix of danger and excitement. As the grand finale was going on, internally, I was falling in love with the screen behind the camera. I can't honestly tell you that if I did love making content before that moment. I know I enjoyed it on some level, but hey, my relationship with the content being created was evolved in that moment. After the show, I walked around. It was really strange. Like, people would get out of my way while I was holding my camera. And this hadn't happened before. There's even like this big guy, and he like pushed a bunch of people aside to create a path for me to walk through the crowd. It's like the universe was opening the path and I just needed to walk it. Now, Shambhala at night can get pretty chilly, even in the middle of summer. On MDMA, my blood was pumping and I hung out in a tank top all night. But on LSD, it was chilly. So I went back to my tent to get changed. As I'm walking through the darkness, trying to find my tent, I was trying to decide if I wanted to take another tab. But the issue was that I wouldn't be able to sleep for a long time. And at this time, the LSD was actually really weak. Like, I could barely feel it, even though it was many hours into the trip. And as I was thinking about this, I was walking through the campgrounds, and a row of tents instantly lit up with rainbow colors out of the darkness. And that was really the first visuals I had on this one PLSD, so I decided to forego another tab. I got changed and wandered around for another couple hours. The LSD was progressively getting stronger, but it was incredibly slow. I could tell I was peaking, but it just wasn't like any other experience I had on LSD. I decided to head back to my tent. Now, the average time for me awake on LSD is probably around 24 to 36 hours, I would say. Here, I made it back to my tent, ready to try and get some sleep, only 6 to 7 hours into my experience. As I laid down, within a matter of minutes, the visuals went from barely noticeable to incredibly detailed. With my eyes closed, there was a sense of letting go and trusting the experience. As I did this, the experience exploded. It ramped up to DMT-like visuals very quickly. Everything is warped and twisting in on itself. This was happening while the visuals were becoming completely unrecognizable and unfamiliar. Even though LSD almost always has unique visuals, they feel and look familiar to other experiences. But in this case, it wasn't like that at all. The intensity was climbing. While the visuals were becoming so intense, they began to break down and dissolve. Soon they crumbled away and I found myself as nothing. No place, no where, no time, no thing, just awareness itself. Just imagine the intensity of the experience going from a light high when I'm lying down, to a heavy LSD trip, to a full-blown DMT breakthrough, and finally, a 5-MeO DMT experience, all in a matter of minutes. Now, as absolute nothingness, the first thing that came back that resembled my life was a thought, which was, I guess I'll go back. From there, my life began to reconstruct rather quickly. In a matter of seconds, I found myself in my tent with the heavy visuals that dissipated after a few minutes of remaining in cemetery. Now, coming out of that experience, it was pretty intense. So as I was falling asleep, I decided that tomorrow night, for my last night, I'm going to do mushrooms. After the energy died down, I fell asleep right away. Probably within 7 hours of ingestion. That's a personal best. I woke up refreshed and ready for another day. I felt good to go. I kept to my plan to do mushrooms as I fell asleep the night before. As the mushrooms came on, I felt like my life was suffocating. Me being here at Shambhala alone completely magnified every aspect of my life. All my close friends up to this point had fallen away. I still see old friends from time to time, but only here and there. Often I am alone. My wife and kids are the majority of my social life. On one hand, I do enjoy being alone. Alone to think, alone to meditate, alone to enjoy the silence. But here at Shambhala, it became incredibly uncomfortable. Like, here I am surrounded by thousands of people, and I've never felt more alone in my entire life. As the night went on, the loneliness only grew heavier. My patterns of behavior would come into my awareness, and I've questioned them. During social gatherings, I realized that I tend to ostracize myself. I often gravitate toward activities that have minimal conversation, like sports and games, playing with the pets or kids. Not always, but enough to question the root of my loneliness. Is it a reflection of the one internal consciousness that is forever alone and my mind is having trouble coming to terms with that while I project onto various parts of my life? Or it is a reflection of that I am coming to terms with it, and I'm not projecting. These are aspects of my life that I've come to realize the patterns of behavior, and I can change them if necessary once I accept where I am at. This was all really heavy. Looking for some sort of comfort, I grabbed some pasta and garlic toast from a vendor, and I found a rock where I sat down and ate. As I ate, I was looking around the festival, and I could see people were hugging, and they're in groups and holding hands. They're reuniting and celebrating each other. It only amplified the feeling of me being alone. The third night was still fairly early, but I decided to go to bed. My weekend is coming to a close, so I head back to my tent, basically cry myself to sleep for being so alone. Every part of my being was empty, much like the emptiness I experienced the night before, only it was being integrated on an emotional level. Much like my previous Shambhalas, the entire weekend had an arc, much like a single psychedelic experience. It started out great as the intensity climbed and I had no idea what I was in for. The weekend peaked with the second night on LSD, with a complete ego dissolution and a slow reconstruction through the third day as I was ready to get back to my regular life. The morning of the journey home, I felt pretty good despite having a rough night before. I love long drives and I had an 8-hour trip ahead of me. One of the first things I thought of when I woke up was after a weekend of surrendering and letting go into emptiness, having the emptiness completely take me, realizing that there is only emptiness through direct experience. Feeling completely alone and lost all hope that I'd feel anything different. After all of that, I woke up with one question. What am I going to create out of all of this emptiness? A pilgrimage is a spiritual journey undertaken by an individual, often driven by faith, devotion, or a deep sense of purpose. It involves traveling to a sacred or significant destination, such as a religious shrine, holy city, or a place of personal significance, with the intention of seeking spiritual enlightenment, fulfillment, or a connection with a higher power. Pilgrimages vary widely in terms of distance, duration, and customs, but they all share a common thread of seeking a transformative experience and a deeper understanding of one's beliefs and inner self.